Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host today, Michael Liebowitz. I am also the vice chairperson of or vice chairman, if you prefer, of the American Capitalist Party. Our chairman and the usual host of the show, Mark Pellegrino, is conspicuous by his absence. I don't know. He has to do something like work or something. So he'll be back tomorrow. But in his place, we have a very good guest and a very good interview we're going to do today with the secretary of, you're the treasurer, I believe, of the American Capitalist Party, and you're also our first political candidate. So he's going to talk to us about that. Alan Thomas, welcome to the show. We are going with Alan Thomas today, correct?
We are. No,
Awesome.
No fake names. This is real world. No
Awesome.
pseudonyms. I'm not publishing any. We're here for.
Okay. So what initially attracted you to the American Capitalist Party?
The truth answer, the honest answer, is
Your
that
wife.
our esteemed secretary said, "I'm dragging you out of retirement, and you're helping me do this thing because the two-party system needs to be brought down to its knees. We need a viable third party, and the Libertarian Party and the Green Party are not there to do it. So uprises the American Capitalist Party based on some foundational principles, and that's what got me into this."
Awesome. So you say you were dragged out of retirement. What does that mean? What were you doing?
So,
what were you retired from?
So tons of activist lobbying and journalism over the course of quite a few years. I had spent many years it's trying to get them elected to city council or state house or governor or attorney general. And this was the year for me to run myself, apparently. So here we are. I had taken a step back in order to not only raise a family, but just to try to live the life that our principles tell us that we need to live. Self-sustainability and working to enrich, not monetarily, not in a sense of greed, but just to make our lives wholer, more full, and to be happy and self-sustainable on our own.
So you're running for office. What office specifically are you running for, and how's it going?
So I am running for place 5 of the city council for the city of Argo in Alabama.
What does that mean? Like, what will you be doing if you get elected? Alan, your connection is horrible.
What am I doing?
You keep freezing up on me, Alan.
My feed's breaking up. I'm sort of far away from the Wi-Fi now, so that my kids don't interrupt the session here. What am I going to do if I get into office? First thing and foremost is I've got to work with a bunch of other people with a bunch of different ideas, and we all have to come to some sort of consensus.
Alan, I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm going to have to cut you out because we can't hear you. You're freezing. It's going terrible. If you get a better connection, then reconnect.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That is our esteemed treasurer, Alan Thomas. If he finds something, we'll get him back on, of course. He's running for the office that he told you about for the great American Capitalist Party. His wife is laughing in the chat. She says, glitching, ha, ha, ha. So I'm going to talk to you then about something very interesting that has been occurring with me on X over the last couple of days. I get Jeremy Kauffman comes across my feed. He's from the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire. Now, the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire posts a lot of vile stuff, racist stuff. They think they're being very edgy. They aren't, but they think they are. They're just being jackasses. But they are called libertarians. And I used to call myself a libertarian. So, that's one of the reasons I stopped was because of people like that. So I put a question out there and I said, is Jeremy Kauffman a libertarian? Got about 100,000 views, maybe over 100,000 by now. And people agree, yes, he's a libertarian. No, he's not. They tell me I'm a jerk and, that sort of thing. But what occurred to me as I'm going through this is that there is no clear definition of libertarianism. There's no means by which to exclude somebody from that. So you have, for instance, so I ask, well, what's the excluder? And some people say it's adherence to the non-aggression principle. Others say, no, that's not required. Some say it's required that you reject intellectual property. Others say, no, that's not required. So if there is no coherent philosophy, if there is no coherent definition, then what the hell is libertarianism? I mean, broadly speaking, I could put it in simple words. It's somebody who believes in individual freedom, right? You could say that, but that doesn't really tell you much of anything, does it? That just says individual freedom. Well, what is individual freedom? What is capitalism? What do these things mean? And there simply is no agreed upon answer. Now, they're getting upset with me, some of them, and they tell me, well, you are just engaging in semantics. Well, I got news for you. Semantics is the study of meaning. The meaning of words, the words with which we think, the words with which we communicate, the meaning of the words we use matters. And if we can't agree on what the words mean, there's no way to effectively communicate. So if I were to say I'm a libertarian, you have 30 people listening and they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And then if I want to point them, well, you could read this to find out, they could go read 5 other things that are going to tell them something completely different. Okay, so we've got Alan Thomas. He seems to be entering. I'm going to reintroduce him, and hopefully he's fixed his problem. Here he is. Alan, welcome back.
Hey, change of scenery.
Awesome. It looks like the same old scenery, but whatever. I'm not very good at picking up differences in the background anyways. People roast me all the time for that. But you are back. So you were telling us what it is you'll be doing if you get elected to the office you're seeking.
Well, it's a matter of practical consensus building. I've got to work with 4 other council members plus a mayor in order to move the city forward. And there are regional, municipal, county rights of way, shall we say. Everybody's got something to say. Everybody has a claim. And so it's a matter of team building in order to get every stakeholder on the same page, moving in the same direction, and trying to move this city forward with the cooperation of our neighbors and other county officials that control a lot of the funding that this town receives.
So I heard in your debate, the subject of zoning came up. First of all, what is your position on zoning, and how do you hope to move the needle to get your, because like you said, you're with other people, you have to work with them. So how do you move the needle in the direction that you want it? So where do you want the needle to go, and how do you get it going there?
Well, let's be honest about what zoning is. Zoning is nothing more than a government organization basically being a glorified homeowners association. The homeowners claim that property values vary by what their neighbors do, and in some cases that may be accurate. But overall, what we see is that you have a city telling everybody within its jurisdiction what they can and cannot do on their own property, and if they are going to do something, to what specifications they're going to be able to do it. And that has nothing to do with the purpose of what they're doing. It has nothing to do necessarily with the building codes. That's not what they're going after. They're going after controlling what the town looks like and what the people in that town can and cannot do. When you put a zoning regulation in place that separates the different types of residential areas that there are, for instance, and what sorts of small businesses or home-based businesses you can do in those varying types of residential districts, you're limiting the people in one district from being able to go out and freely set up whatever entrepreneurial enterprise they may want to, because they happen to live in a place that's zoned R2 as opposed to R1.
So what would your position, if I would say, what is your position on zoning specifically? Should there be any zoning laws in your view?
Completely redesigned. If zoning is there in order to ensure that the buildings, any buildings that are built are up to code, great. We want to make sure that what we build is sustainable and will last for as long as possible. We don't want houses burning down because of crappy electrical. We don't want sewage piling up because the plumbing wasn't installed correctly. I get that. I understand that. But practically speaking, don't let people move out into the country and then tell them that they can't have chickens.
Do you have chickens?
I do have chickens.
And the goose.
And a goose.
How, Alan, is your candidacy being received by the people around you? I mean, are they liking what you have to say? Are they hoping to hear more from you? How's that going?
From what I can gather, I believe that it's going incredibly well. One of the metrics that I'm using to test that and to gauge that is the responses of the camp on the other side that would be opposing me. They seem to be acting online and in person in ways that shows that they're pretty scared that I'm actually going to win. And well, they should be, because I am actually going to win. My supporters have been absolutely fantastic. I've got one that is an educator at one of the best schools in the state of Alabama, who has been following not just the Argo race, but also races across the state, and has selected me to endorse me, where along with other people in other cities. And to me, that's striking, because if there's only one person in your hometown that you're going to endorse while you're endorsing people from other municipalities across the state, I'm in statewide company, not local company. It shows that, you know, the quality of my candidacy and what I could bring to the table is much higher than any of the other potential candidates within this town.
Okay, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to add that, you know, when it comes to building the community and being a voice for the voters, there's a lot more positive interaction and interaction generally, bringing community together on my posts and participation in online communications than there are for anyone else. And I think that's telling, that this community is willing to talk to me and have conversations with me where no one else is talking. And more importantly, no one else seems to really be listening.
Now, you mentioned to me that you wanted to come on and discuss a little bit about building the American Capitalist Party up from the grassroots and how people can become candidates, that sort of thing. So what did you want to say about that?
Well, what I really hope to see, because like I said, I got pulled into this in order to help bring down the duopoly that exists. And the American Capitalist Party has a great potential to expand everywhere. My personal theory is that the more we can expand locally, the more we're able to influence our neighbors, and other members of our community, and build up a coalition at the local level first, as opposed to trying the same playbook that the Libertarian Party did and just go after the presidency first. I think there's a lot more impact that we can make at a local level, whether that be municipal or state. And the more impact we're making at a local level to resist some of the policies of our current administration, then the more effective we're going to be later on, once we do have a large coalition, a large voter base. And on top of that, that larger voter base having won the local elections is going to make it much easier for the party to gain access to the ballot at the state level races or the federal national races.
Okay, before I let you go, is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience about you, your candidacy, the party, the chickens?
The biggest thing I want to say is that I just want to thank everybody for following and supporting it. I'm looking forward to coming on next, probably Wednesday or Thursday, at least in the comments section, if nothing else, to announce personally the results of Tuesday's win. And, you know, we'll see where it goes from there.
Awesome. Okay, well, we look forward to hearing the results of what happens with the election. It's the 26th, right? That the election takes
Coming
place.
Tuesday. A few days away.
Awesome. Okay, awesome, Alan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, that was Alan Thomas, our candidate for whatever the office. I don't know. I don't know much about local politics, but he is our first candidate that we have running. He is running in Alabama, and we certainly wish him luck. Bonnie Bertrand wants to know, no pushback on zoning being okay. Well, my position on zoning, Bonnie, is clear. I would abolish all zoning laws. I don't think they should exist. I don't think they should be there. I have a policy. Whenever I bring a guest on any show I do, if that guest is not told ahead of time that we are going to be arguing, I don't do that. I just let the guests put their point of view out there and go with it, because I don't want to ambush anybody. That's not what I'm about. My position on zoning, Bonnie, is get rid of them all. But, you know, you've got a candidate running in a local race in Alabama, in a locality that I really know nothing about. So, you know, he has to sort of navigate those waters, and he has to put in position the policies that are going to work there. And, you know, maybe you can ask him, or you can challenge him on zoning. I think that would be great. I think that, you know, that's a fantastic thing. Again, it's just not what I do. When I have somebody on a show, I don't challenge them unless they know ahead of time that that's what they're in for. Because to be quite frank, I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. I have an idea here. I would like Persephone. You can hear me. Are you willing to come on the show and talk a little bit, Persephone? If not, that's fine. But I just got some questions for you that I'd like to ask. You do such a great job. If you don't want to, that's perfectly fine with me. Okay, so we have a good question here from Kat Sterling. Had a question about libertarianism. How does one go about getting a definitive answer? Is it even possible? I don't think so, Kat, because what ends up happening is the people that are answering it, they're largely defining libertarianism according to their own belief set, to the variant that they hold. The problem is that variant often contradicts other variants. My main concern, or my main issue, and why I won't call myself a libertarian, is because there's no way for me to tell somebody like a Jeremy Kauffman he's not a libertarian. These people, I've seen them make posts praising Hamas. I've seen them make posts denigrating African Americans, Jews, transgender people. And I simply do not want to be associated with them. But by what metric could I tell them that they are not libertarians? And there's just none that I can go by. I once saw a post from the Libertarian Mises Caucus of Alabama where they praised the Unabomber. What am I supposed to do? How do you tell them they're not libertarians? And I have no way to do it. Okay, I'm going to bring Persephone on, because I want to ask her some quick questions, and I think it'll be quite entertaining. She's got the great British accent that we all love, or at least I love, and I guess that matters because I'm the one bringing her on. Persephone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
By the way, my accent is South African.
Is it really? But isn't it okay? Let me ask you a little bit about that, because I used to watch this show called Rules of Engagement. And there was a guy, he was Indian, but he was from South Africa. Yeah. And he sounded like he had a British accent to me. And the main character says to him, you know, what is it with you? You look like one kind of person, you sound like another. What's going on? So where does the South African get its accent? Is it a combination of Boers and Brits, or what's happening there?
Yeah, we were settled by, obviously, England, a lot of Dutch, and then there's a lot of African languages. So our accent is very, very Dutch. Actually, if you listen to Dutch people talk, my native language is Afrikaans, which sounds a lot like Dutch or Flemish.
Okay, so you have taken an interest in the show, and you do an absolutely great job, by the way, with the clips, with the out of context stuff, which I have to see. You have to do those. Don't neglect those. But it's really great. You showed me how to do the thing where I can post things to the screen, which I never thought I would learn. So that's wonderful. But why did you take an issue? What made you take an interest in doing this?
This is gonna sound really weird. So I stumbled on the show. I've always been a fan of Mark's, and I stumbled on the show and I watched one episode and I kind of wasn't into it. And then I watched again and you recommended The Law by Bastiat. And I went and I read it and I was like, oh, okay, now I'm into this. And then I started watching every day and I started reading more. I also read Ayn Rand because of Mark. And I don't know, I dig the message, I dig the way you guys talk about things, and I just decided I want to help.
So what give me some put you on the spot a little bit. What's something you think we could be doing better?
Get the website live.
That'll be soon, right?
The website is live. I just need you guys to do one final look and then that's up. Mark was messaging me at my 2:00 this morning and gave me a lecture about one of the blogs. It was just, I wish you could hear the sound that my text messages make and then understand that he was messaging me at 2:00 in the morning. And I was like, cool, this is fun. He just sent me like 18 messages in a row. And I was like, my husband was next to me and he's like, I'm going to throw your phone across the room because he was trying to sleep. And I was like, but it's important. It's about a blog that I'm writing.
I have this guy and he's posting stuff here and I'm going to look up what he's saying. He's posting in another language and I want to know what he's talking about. My guess is it's not good. I think we have a troll in the audience. I'm very interested to see it. Matter of fact, can somebody else please look this stuff up and tell me exactly what this guy is saying? That way I don't have to do it right now. That would really appreciate it.
Also, Deeper with Diego said that you have a black person on the thing, which is funny because I'm African.
Yes, Diego is a real smart ass. Okay, I'm going to get to the political talk, Persephone. So you're going to go back behind the scenes, but thank you so much for coming on and for all that you do here. It's wonderful. Thank you. All right, so someone's going to tell me what this guy's posting about, and we'll decide if we're going to let him stay or not. Because if he's a troll, I have no desire to have him here. If he's not, and someone says it's Serbian, maybe he's a nice guy. I don't know. We're going to find out. So somebody asked a while back. Let me see. I want to go back to Diego and what he said, and also we're going to get to what Enric said as well. Diego says all words and concepts are derived from reality. That's how you get a definitive answer. If you came across a word or concept that's not tied to reality, it's floating, and the answer is subjective nonsense. And that, Diego, is what I'm seeing in libertarianism, is that there's nothing in reality that we can point to. There's nothing that we can say or do to definitively say who is a libertarian, who is not a libertarian, or what a libertarian is. And that is the problem. And as Enric points out, and let me just say, Alan Thomas back here says, I don't want zoning. We moved here because there was no zoning. Now there is. Those regulations prevent free enterprise. Thank you, Alan. Enric says, not even a clear definition of NAP, which is the non-aggression principle. I agree, Enric, to an extent. My main problem with the NAP is that it's a stolen concept. And what I mean by that, well, no, I'm not going to say stolen concept. It's a floating abstraction because it's a clear ethical concept, but it's not tied to any ethical theory. It's just postulated as if it's axiomatic that you shouldn't harm people, but they cannot. Okay, I got a question that I'll get to. They cannot, and they don't even attempt, most of them, to tie it to broader theory, to justify it or anything else. It's just put out there. But there's many who don't even say that that's required to be a libertarian. Some say it absolutely is. Some say it's not. And there's simply no way to resolve that. It's not like going to objectivism, where we know with Ayn Rand that she, has delineated what objectivism is. You can't do that. It's not like we can say, okay, I know what a light is, and we have a clear definition of light, and then I can contrast that with darkness and say darkness clearly isn't that. With libertarianism, we simply don't have that. The term libertarian, Diego wants to know, is there an individual, an intellectual that coined the term libertarian and then defined it? The term has a long history. There was an attempt to, it predates the 50s, but in the 50s, somebody coined the term. I don't know if they didn't coin it, they appropriated it. I don't know if they clearly defined it, but many people have come along since then and given their own version of it. I mean, you have minarchists, utilitarians, natural rights philosophers. So there's a broad swath of people that call themselves libertarians. Okay, let me see. Okay, Bonnie says, I think there's a way to talk about a basic principle without it being an ambush or a challenge, like asking, how do we draw the line between enough zoning and too much? That's a fair point, Bonnie. I don't disagree with you on that one. But again, I think that you initially asked why there wasn't any pushback, and pushback rings something different to me, as if it's challenging, not simply asking for clarification. But to be honest, it didn't occur to me to ask the question the way that you said. Are Noam Chomsky and Jimmy Dore libertarians? We have from Rock Chartrand. I don't know. That's the part of the problem. I don't see any. Nobody yet has told me what this guy's questions mean. So I'd really like to know. Evidently the Serbian fellow. So I read an article this morning about the optics of what's taking place in Washington D.C. And I've only been to Washington D.C. once in my life, and when I went there, it seemed nice. Like, I mean, granted, I was on the National Mall. I was, downtown near the White House. So I didn't expect it to really be a dangerous place, but they do now have National Guard there. And one thing I noticed was there were joggers. People were, and the guy said, these joggers are now being, confronted basically with military personnel, and it's got to be. Oh, the guy asked me if I am from Serbia. I don't know where the name Liebowitz comes from. I'm sorry. I don't know. But so you've got this situation where you've got people jogging, you've got pedestrians, tourists, and they're now being confronted with military. In the article I read, it was in Reason Magazine. It talked about, is this American? Is that what America's about? And it gets into the history of, the American opposition to a standing army, and the conditions that have to be met in order to have a standing army, and how this stuff is just blatantly un-American. And I have to agree that Trump's proclivity to involve the military, or to want to project toughness in all areas where he sees a lack or wants to appear something, I find it very, very disturbing. And I hope the audience here does as well. By the way, I interviewed Mark yesterday, Mark Pellegrino, and it was all about the upcoming show we're going to be doing on the intersection between philosophy and psychology. And I think that you all should really check it out. It is a great interview, and it's going to be a great show as well. We're going to be really getting into some self-improvement stuff on how to assess our philosophy, how to analyze our own psychology, how to grow as people. We addressed some of the stuff in the interview, but I had to cut it short because if we just kept talking about it, we're going to be taking away material from the new show, and I didn't want to do that. Lee says that she and Kat cried over the episode. Well, I don't want to make anybody cry, but I think it was a really good episode, and I agree with Kaya Prigmore that it was a great interview. So remember, folks, please go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Check out the American Capitalist Party. Also, check out the Rational Egoist, my podcast. I think you're really going to like it. And follow us on X. We, there's the American Capitalist Party page. Mark is constantly posting. I'm constantly posting. But remember that what comes from Mark and I is not necessarily indicative of the views of the American Capitalist Party. Although I would suspect that usually they are pretty much in line. So, but yeah, just check it all out, and I think it'll be great. So I'm trying to think here, and kind of why I'm talking is I'm trying to think of a subject to discuss. Are there any questions in the audience? Can you help me through this? Help me get a gauge of what you would like to talk about. And Lee, while I love you, I don't want you to ask me about the names of the chickens. I want to. I'm not bringing you on, Lee. I'm sorry. You are great, but I actually want to have a conversation about capitalism. So, what are your questions about capitalism? What do you think? Where we're going? Oh, so Kat Sterling has a question. How unfortunately possible is it that after Trump, we will end up with a socialist president because too many refuse to acknowledge the truth behind capitalism and free markets? One of my concerns, this question actually has multiple meanings for me, Kat. One of my concerns with people like Trump, and it actually is the same reason I won't call myself a libertarian anymore, is I don't want to be associated with some of the people, a lot of the people that are associated with libertarians. And on another similar attack, people think Trump is a capitalist. So if people come to associate Trump with capitalism, then when you start talking capitalism, they may not even think about what you're saying anymore. They may just put up a wall and say, no, I don't like Trump. I don't want to hear it. But Trump isn't a capitalist. And in fact, he's very socialistic and fascistic in his policies, wanting to have a government stake in companies, for instance. That's the type of thing that he believes in. So there's a good question coming up from Holden Mitrio, and I'll get to that in a second. So we've already in many ways have that type of president, but it could get much worse because people associate capitalism with somebody like a Trump. Holden Mitrione wants to know, what are my non-negotiables for friends and a romantic partner? Wow, that's tough. Lee says Trump's a bozo. Hold on, I'm going to have to think about that. I wish I could actually answer that up front, but I can't. It's a tough one because for my because you have layers of friends, right? So for my very close friends, I expect a different level of intimacy, for instance, between us, and the things that we're going to talk about, the things that we're going to share. I expect that person to be there for me when I need them, as I expect them as they expect me to be there for them. I mean, I'm not going to be associating with outright criminals. That would be a non-negotiable, but I've really got to give this some thought, Holden. Thank you so much, because fortunately for me, the friends that I have are great. So I don't really have to do much thinking about who and what I won't be friends with, because they're not really there. But I haven't actually set out the explicit criteria on how to exclude them. I'm going to have to do that. Okay, so I don't know. There was a bunch of stuff about the Slavic guy. I don't want to read that. It's not really it's not very interesting to me right now. So, but Holtron, thank you so much for that question. I thought it was a great one, very thought-provoking for me, and you kind of stumped me, which I think is great. As for romantic partners, I expect honesty. If a person lies to me, then that would be a non-negotiable. And I guess, okay, there's one. Lying. If somebody's going to lie to me or deceive me, that's a non-negotiable. Especially for a romantic partner, if that person's not willing to be emotionally and intellectually intimate with me, if I can't actually know the person, then that's non-negotiable. I have to be able to know who it is with whom I'm dealing. Also, I would say for both sets, friends, and romantic partners, there has to be a level of wanting to grow, of putting forth the effort to grow, to be a better person. Because we all, in my experience anyway, we all have room to grow. So Diana's yelling at me now. So we have to be willing to grow. So I just want everybody to, Diana is now in the audience. So here's a funny story, and I think everybody will enjoy this. The day before yesterday, Diana was absolutely roasting me about my driving. I'm a terrible driver. I'm always getting beeped at. Now, there's an irony here in that Diana's the one that taught me how to drive. That's the first thing. So she taught me how to drive. So the idea that she's going to then criticize my driving is insane. But beyond that, so she's roasting me about the driving. We pull into the parking lot. She parks. I get out. I turn around. She's not even halfway into the freaking parking space. Half the car is hanging out into the area where people are supposed to drive. I look, I said, boy, ain't this something? I got to tell you, you talk schadenfreude, the joy that came over me. This was absolutely wonderful. I said, what's happening here? And I took a photograph and I posted it, but believe me, she gave me permission to post it. I wouldn't do that. Diana's wonderful. She's got a great sense of humor, and that's something I absolutely love about her. I don't know if a sense of humor is a non-negotiable, but I think it has to be. With the way that I break balls, if somebody does not have a sense of humor, oh my goodness, they are going to have to be, I don't know, they couldn't take me. They wouldn't be able to tolerate me. The interesting thing is that I only break the balls of people I care about, the people I like. I don't do that to people I don't like. That's like a form of intimacy for me. My friend Brent and I, my best friend, we used to, we were in the cell together. We would wake up at 5 a.m. breaking balls. It's like the first thing that, starts up. We're going at it. So, that to me is a very important thing. But Diana is great. Her I normally compliment her on what a great parker she is. Just yesterday, she didn't pull it off. So I have to do it. So let me check out. There was a question here I wanted to see. Comments, private chat. Rock Chartran wants to know how to convince anti-capitalists that cronyism is the consequence of their clamoring for the government to fix their lives. The problem, Rock, is when we say how to convince people is there's an assumption going on there, right? The assumption is that they're honest, but of course they not always are. And if somebody's not honest, there's no way to convince them of anything. You have to have somebody that's honest, and you have to actually have somebody that's willing to think. Once you have somebody that's willing to think, I find it more effective. As much as I argue, as much as I debate, and as much as I run my mouth, I have found nothing more effective in changing the minds of people than actually having them read the books. The people in that takes effort on their part, but if they're truly interested in ideas, they'll be willing to put it. So I'll give you an example. There was a friend of mine in prison who was a wicked environmentalist. He was verging on a socialist, but I wouldn't call him quite a socialist, but he was close to there. I had him read the book, The Ultimate Resource 2 by Julian Simon. About halfway through the book, he came out of the cell and he said, this guy has changed my mind about one of my fundamental beliefs. And that was that the earth is going to be overpopulated. He read this book, almanac in hand, because almanac in prison is our version of Google. And that did it. That changed his mind. And he afterward, he ultimately became a diehard capitalist, running around debating people like I do and trying to bring people into the fold. So that's my answer is you get them to read the literature, offer them the books. And, you start with the simple stuff. Frederick Bastiat's The Law, as Persephone said, she read it, thought it was great. It's such a simple book and it's so powerful. And the thing is, while it doesn't present a case for objective morality, it does present arguments that most people accept. Most people, for instance, accept stealing is wrong. They may not be able to prove it, but they accept it. So when Bastiat demonstrates that the government taking your money is theft, he does it so clearly that people come along to it, come around to his point of view. They understand it. Also, Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. Again, it's such a simple book. It's very, very clear, very easy to read, and very, very strong in its argumentation. Enric says, do you miss your cellmates? I miss Brent McCall incredibly. Brent McCall is a phenomenal human being. He has more integrity than any human being that I've ever met in my life. The dude is just rock solid. Great human being. Has put in a credible amount of work to change himself, and it's really, in my view, an injustice that they won't give him a chance to let him out of prison. He needs to be given a break. That would be justice in my view, and I do miss him very much. Enric. Holden Mitrione says, do you agree with the PTPT of interest, and have you by chance read the positive theory? Holden, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is, the PTPT of interest. I am not thoroughly familiar with a vast array of theories of interest. I'm familiar with Keynes's theory of interest, the Austrian theory of interest, George Reisman, maybe Milton Friedman, and then in the Chicago school, and that's not even thoroughly. Pure time preference theory. Okay. I do think that for originary interest, and you're really getting me in the woods here, that pure time preference is the root of interest. Now, I think that there are different components of the interest rate, as Mises talks about. He has in the risk component, the entrepreneurial component of risk, of time preference, and there was something else that I'm not remembering. I can't believe my mind went blank. But in short, I agree with Ludwig von Mises's take on interest. Gary Menard says, why do libertarians have such a hostility to a system of philosophy and code of morality to back up their politics? Per your debate with Walter Block, who clings to the NAP as a self-evident fact. I can't, all I can do is speculate, and there's such a diverse group of people who call themselves libertarians that you really can't paint them all with one brush. I think in general, a lot of people I've met are hostile to an idea of morality because they don't want to be judged. So they just say there's no objective standard of morality, because then they would have to come to terms with their own moral shortcomings. That's one reason. Another reason is to justify a political system based on philosophy requires a hell of a lot of work and a hell of a lot of effort. So, that could be another reason with their hesitancy. But there are libertarians that I know that do embrace even objectivism. So I wouldn't say they all are hostile to a system of philosophy or in a system of morality. So Kat says, and thank you for pointing out that I missed her question. She says, do you feel like if you had to choose one, you could better get through to millennials or Gen Z about these kinds of topics? Kat, I'm sorry. I literally have no idea. I could not answer that question even if I wanted to. I don't know who's easier to communicate to. It comes down to who has the more active minds, and I'm not sure that any generation has a monopoly on active thinking. So I really don't know. But Katie, thanks for pointing out that I missed I missed the question. I really appreciate that. Do we have any other questions? If not, I'm going to take off. I have an interview to do at 1:30. I don't have an array of topics planned for today. Oh, okay. Holden Mitrione says, what in econ theory do you feel you know most about? I think I would say price formation. If I had to settle on one, I would say price formation. I think it's readily apparent that prices are a result of the subjective evaluations by people in the marketplace, producers and consumers. I also was very strongly influenced by Carl Menger's demonstration on how it isn't the cost of production that determines the value of the end product, but rather it's the anticipation of what the end product will be that determines the cost of production. So that I think would be what I'm most familiar with. I mean, you could cite specific things like minimum wage and get into specific interventions in the economy, but I think the idea that individuals act, and they act based on their preferences or based on their subjective evaluations, is probably the foundation, and it applies to so much. But I also am very well versed in Austrian business cycle theory. So, but even that, I think probably stems from their theory of subjective value. So that's what I would have to say, Holden. Kat Sterling said she's proud of full 7 days nicotine free. I am proud of you too, Kat. Anytime somebody takes positive steps in their life, I admire it so much. It's a very difficult thing to change ingrained habits. So when people do it, I find it very, very impressive, and hats off to you. And I think such people need to be encouraged. Leonard Peikoff puts this so well in Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand. It's important to tell Kant he's wrong, but it's more important to tell Aristotle he's right. People that are doing right, people that are doing good, need to know that they're doing good. And so, it's, I believe, incumbent upon all of us to let them know that they're doing well, to let them know that there's people that support them. Okay, that seems to be it. There doesn't seem to be any questions. And I'm sorry, but the please don't go, Mike, does not constitute a question or a point of discussion. So I guess it's on me once again to give the capitalist thought of the day. And I will make it simple. Capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production. It's the system whereby the rights of individuals are protected. And that is easily defined. It's easily explained. So it's unlike libertarianism, where you end up going in circles and everybody says it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, and there's nothing really to point to. In the case of actual capitalism, we have something to point to. If somebody is remember, it's private ownership of the means of production. So then you'd have to trace the roots of each word in the thing. What is private? What is ownership? And what it boils down to is that people have individual rights. They have the individual right to produce what they can. They have the right to consume what they can pay for, and they have the right to trade with whomever they want. All of this, as long as they are not violating the rights of others. We have a question. Did I see the article that I was sent for the kid who worked for somebody, I don't know who, that got arrested after he was watched stealing for months? Curious about your thoughts on the company. I did not see it. I'm sorry. So many people send me so much stuff. I often don't see it. Diana says that she will interview Lee. Okay, let's put our time where our mouth is, my lovely girlfriend. You can use my StreamYard, my computer, and my mic, and you can do the interview. That, I think, will be very, very fun. I encourage it. With all my might, I encourage it. I think this will be a great discussion. I would love to see it. We don't have to post it, but each one of you will have it for yourselves, and I think that will be great. So thank all of you so much for joining me today. We had the bit of a hiccup with, Alan and the Wi-Fi, and Mark, just informed me yet last night that he wouldn't be here today. He had something come up. So the audience, thank you so much. For now, this is the Capitalist Corner. Remember, always check your premises. Oh, by the way, share from YouTube, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check me out on The Rational Egoist, and go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Now, remember to check your premises. Thank you.